We are down to one team, the New Orleans Saints, that has yet to hire their head coach heading into the 2025 season. The candidate's there. And why does everybody universally hate what the Dallas Cowboys are doing with their coaching staff? And we still haven't talked about Pete Carroll, who is back. His energy will be on the sidelines in the NFL in 2025. All that and more coming up on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look at the NFL on the field and in the front office with elite breakdowns to next-level analysis and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Love and appreciate all the everydayers out there. And welcome to the new listeners. Make sure you let us know that you stopped by. Love it when I see the thumbs up on YouTube. Of course, subscribe on YouTube or anywhere you are listening to this podcast or get your podcast. And today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Matt, let's go to the Dallas Cowboys. And, with the championship weekend, we kind of didn't have an opportunity to really get into the coaching staffs that are coming together around the NFL, and namely two head coach hires recently in Brian Schottenheimer for the Dallas Cowboys and Pete Carroll, which is an interesting one. And I kind of love that he's back. I don't know if it's the right move, but I have some takes on Pete Carroll and why it might be the right move for the Las Vegas Raiders. So let's go to the Cowboys first. And man, people hate this.
Yeah, I know.
People absolutely hate it. And so offensive coordinator Brian Schottenheimer is now the head coach after Mike McCarthy was kind of just his contract was up and he left. And it's something that doesn't happen a lot in the NFL. Clearly, Jerry Jones and the Jones family thought that coaching staff was doing a good job. So just kind of gave some folks some bump. And Brian Schottenheimer is now the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. And now the staff is coming together with former Lions head coach and then Colts defensive coordinator before that. Matt Eberflus is going to be the defensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys and special teams coordinator. Last year, he was the defensive coordinator for the 49ers, and he had crossed paths with Schottenheimer in Jacksonville, where Nick Sorensen was the special teams coordinator for a season there with on a staff with Brian Schottenheimer. Now comes back to Dallas Cowboys to become their special teams coordinators. So the coordinators coming together as well for the Dallas Cowboys. And I do think that actually Eberflus as a defense coordinator is a fine hire.
Yeah,
people hold some coaches' head coach resume against them, even though Eberflus, the reason he got the job as a head coach, because he's a really good and well-respected defensive coordinator. So I actually like that hire for the Dallas Cowboys, and Eberflus really signals to me that they're going to try to find some interior defensive line help, because that's what he loves to use as disruption for his defense and the way he likes to attack offenses in the NFL. But overall, people hate this. Do you hate this as much as seemingly everybody else, including Cowboys fans, with the Cowboys?
Sort of. And again, I really like the Eberflus hire, as you mentioned. I think he's an excellent defensive coordinator. Probably hit his head on the ceiling as a coordinator, not a head coach. Don't hold head coaching stuff against him, please. Those are great words of wisdom from you. But here's what I hate about it. He was the linebacker coach with the Cowboys before that, and they're all just too familiar. They're all too easy. And I think that's what people hate about the Schottenheimer thing. It's kind of convenient. So, we'll just bump this guy up. It's just not inspired. How much work outside the organization? Yeah, right.
The Schottenheimer name. Yeah.
I mean, Schottenheimer, by all accounts, is a wonderful human being. And I mean, I'm not saying that just because I don't know him. I don't know him. But people like, this guy's a lot of fun to be around. Everyone likes him. Easy to work with. And it just feels like that's what Jerry's happy with right now. We're happy with everyone just being happy to go to the office as opposed to how do we beat the Eagles? I mean, it just seems uninspired.
Well, what's strange is the last calendar year, really the talk around the Dallas Cowboys was it was just kind of status quo. They didn't really add much, and they're like, all right, let's see what this same team does again. We're not going to really change much.
Yeah.
And it kind of felt like McCarthy's maybe hot seat, and he didn't end up getting fired or anything, but they didn't go to the playoffs, and he ended up being, not re-signed as head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. And then, so now you just kind of keep the in-house coach as your head coach, and you've already paid guys. You have to pay more guys. And so it just feels like the same again. You're kind of spinning your wheels. Like, where does this team improve to get over the hump where they've been the last couple of years, because they're not doing anything to change that? So that's exactly what I have a problem with, is like, okay, if you're either getting better or you're getting worse, and they're not getting better.
Right. If your sharks stop swimming, they die, and that's the NFL in a nutshell. It just seems, again, too convenient, too easy. I didn't hear any big name guys being discussed. I mean, I know Jerry can pay them. It shouldn't be an issue in terms of, spending. And it's just very complacent. And it's been a complacent year and a half, really, for Dallas. And I think that's frustrating. Is winning the most important thing. And this has been something that's been thrown around with the Jones family now for a decade. And it seems like it's less and less important to them from an outsider.
I have heard a very interesting theory about the Dallas Cowboys, and I want to run this one by you. So a lot of folks think that Jerry Jones is kind of going to use Brian Schottenheimer as a short-term, almost scapegoat coach to try to get the guy he wants next to be his head coach, Jason Witten, ready for the job. And so Schottenheimer might even be like a little bit of a placeholder for Jerry Jones, and he wants to bring his own back and Jason Witten to be the guy. What are your thoughts on that conspiracy theory?
My initial thought, I've heard that as well. I've heard that he wants Witten to be his coach someday sooner than later. I think he's a high school coach right now, by the way. I mean, so he's never really even been.
Liberty Christian High School is where he's at right
Okay.
now.
And good for him. And he was a great tight end and well-spoken, all those things. Sounds like the Jeff Saturday hire to me, though. Like, let's just turn this guy into a coach, even though he really isn't. And maybe Witten wants to be a coach and is dedicated to it. I don't know. I mean, a lot of those players, and I'm really generalizing, stereotyping here, don't want to put in those kind of hours. I mean, to live in the facility and do all the little things and the minutia and dealing with the media and all the little things that head coaches have to deal with, especially if you were a great player and you made a lot of money. And I'm sure Witten doesn't need the money, like, do I really want to grind out, the workout schedules of the left guards backup and all the stuff that the head coaches have to deal with? I don't like it from afar, but I'm not saying it can't work, but it does seems like fairy tales,
And best I can tell, he hasn't joined the staff. So that would probably be the first step, is you're not going to go from high school coach to head coach.
I hope not a year from now or whatever. Right.
You shouldn't. So, where's the spot on the staff for him? Does he come in as tight ends coach and assistant head coach? And then there's your path. Maybe become offensive coordinator at some point, or something. Well, whatever it is.
I wouldn't even trust him to call plays right now. I mean, it sounds like Schottenheimer's going to call plays, so we do know that much. Right. Okay.
Sort of,
if you're tight end for a coach for a year and you can put in the time and love it, then when we'll groom you, then we'll think about it.
And then Schottenheimer's probably not like, well, I'm not going to bring this guy in to replace me.
Right.
So why do I want to add him to my staff?
What good is, well, yeah, I plan on doing this for the next 40 years. I'm going to be the best coach ever. I don't want to open a door for somebody else. I don't know. It's sticky, and I can see why people don't love it. Yeah. They have all the resources in the world.
Right. And
it might work.
When it's December and you're thinking, okay, man, if Mike McCarthy doesn't come back, what about Bill Belichick? What about, and you start going down names, and then it's like, Schottenheimer ends up at the job. Okay, I guess Matt Eberflus, is good. Could be a good defensive coordinator, but I don't think he got people excited necessarily. So I absolutely understand why Cowboys fans are not super excited about the new Cowboys coaching staff. And it could go great, but it feels like there's a little bit of a spinning wheels going on right now in Dallas.
And you look at the division and you're like, okay, the Giants are still a mess until further notice. Washington is super scary all of a sudden, for a long time. And the Eagles are like the most aggressive, forward-thinking organization in the league. You know, they're never going to just lay down for an offseason like the Cowboys did last year.
I mean, fast forward 6 months, we're certainly not going to pick the Cowboys to be any higher than third in the division.
I wouldn't think. I mean, I have a hard time believing I'm going to have them as a playoff team, but as good as North is, and Niners could be back. A
lot of offseason to go. We'll see what the Dallas Cowboys end up doing to put their 2025 team together. And let's talk about the Las Vegas Raiders next. Pete Carroll is back at 73 years old, I believe, head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. And what's going on with the Saints job, the candidates there that will be interviewed in the next week or so. No rush anymore because there's no more head coaching jobs. So the Saints can take their time to find their guy and finish their interviews, even post Super Bowl. We'll get to all that next. This episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Super Bowl 59. It's here. One game, two teams, endless possibilities, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook, whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss. FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action with live betting all game long. You can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus dollars for the Super Bowl, man, that's icing on the cake. So download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59. Pete Carroll is back with the Las Vegas Raiders, and this is a fascinating one to me because at first I thought, come on, no team's going to hire Pete Carroll at his advanced age, and I know he still had some energy last time he was on a sideline, took a year off, and it's like, Pete Carroll, come on, that's not serious business, right? And then the more I think about it, Matt, different than the Cowboys, but maybe clearly not a long. I don't think he's going to be coaching the Raiders for 10 years, right?
Right.
Pretty wild. But you're the Raiders, and I wonder if Pete Carroll maybe was sold himself this way. He's like, look, guys, you got to fix the culture. Let me come in, fix the culture. You'll get somebody else in here in 2-3 years to take the reins after we fix this thing, because the foundation is what is important. And I could see Tom Brady being like, yeah, dude, let's bring in Pete Carroll. Let's fix the culture, fix the foundation, and then worry about what next hot up-and-coming head coach we're going to hire.
I 100% agree, and I love it. I mean, I think it's fun as a fan and an analyst from afar. But if I were invested in the Raiders, I love this approach. Brady goes and gets his GM and trusts that guy to get the players. Cool. Okay, that's a good start. I think that's a quality hire. But for the exact reasons you mentioned, I want every Raider player to jump out of bed and can't wait to get to the facility in the next, and really be excited to be part of this team. Pete's like perfect for that. I mean, at this point too, he's kind of the lovable grandfather, but has so many pelts on the wall. And, I mean, you can't help but think about the division as well. Like, look how many Super Bowls and wins that division has now at the 4 head coaches. I mean, it's insanity. And there might add another one here in a week or two. Now, I'm not saying, I mean, you might have 4 potential Hall of Fame head coaches. I mean, that's not far-fetched when they're all said and done. That's pretty crazy. At least you're
and a couple
hanging
of
in the arms race.
Championships on top of it.
Yeah, right. I mean, they got levels all over the place. They're just winners. I mean, there's no way around it. Those 4 coaches are winners, and it's a good start. I mean, now they got to build the roster, and we could talk about all those things too. Like, they've been linked to Russell Wilson. I don't know if that gets you anywhere. I think like a Sam Darnold could end up there, but I don't know what the staff looks like. But I mentioned this, or I thought of it earlier. I would hope that they have maybe a really promising, not head coach in waiting, but not the Witten conversation we just had, but maybe someone really promising that this works out. Wink, wink. 2 years from now, we'll hand it to you. I'm big on this.
I'm looking it up right now, and I'm trying to find out if there's been any more hires too.
Okay. While you do, I was going to say one other thing too. I mean, Brady and the Patriots were all about culture as much as any organization as I can remember, too. So this just reeks of Tom Brady. And Tom Brady, that's exactly the smell I want to hear. Or that I want to smell. I mean, if this is all Tom Brady's influence, I give Mark Davis a lot of credit for saying, I think you know this better than I do. Take it over. Let's go.
As of now, I'm seeing some interviews, but no official lists of what we have here, unless I'm missing it, because I hadn't seen anything.
Right?
So it's looking like there's still an interview phase for trying to figure out what the coordinator is going to be under Pete Carroll with the Raiders. And obviously, a lot has to be done with the roster still as well. Probably you go the stopgap quarterback route, even if you're going to draft the quarterback, high in the first round. And maybe that's not even the path for them, is to draft a quarterback high in the first round. They need other foundational talent.
I bet it's infrastructure.
Yeah.
I like it, though.
Pete Carroll's the guy that has not had those first round quarterbacks, right?
I mean, he hit Wilson in the third, and that lasted over a decade.
Smith from elsewhere. He tried to do the same thing with Drew Lock. That didn't work out great, but Smith ended up winning the job there. I don't think he needs it. I don't think he thinks he needs that top quarterback unless it's like the guy. And maybe what they need the most for the Raiders, change culture, get only the guys in there that are going to be wired the way they want, and maybe lose a lot of games. And who knows, maybe they draft the quarterback high next year.
Like, I don't think they're in a great position to move up to 1 and give up future firsts and things like that, or a player that's an infrastructure guy. Build lines of scrimmage, and we'll, use the 3rd round pick on Jackson Dart, or a 2nd round pick, or whatever, or maybe sign Darnold, or maybe I'd even understand bringing in Russell Wilson for a year or whatever, something like that. And just let's make this an environment we like. And Pete's always been a guy that I've really rooted for, because when I got hired by Pitt was by Walt Harris was the head coach. And believe it or not, Walt gave Pete his first job way back when. And Pete's son, Brendan Carroll, was a walk-on tight end with the Pitt Panthers when I was there too. I mean, because they were buddies. Pete's like, hey, can my son walk on a Pitt? Sure. So, but a lot of people knew him directly or indirectly, and they all raved about Pete Carroll as a human being,
We're doing our mailbag on Thursday this week, Matt. But there's a question early that I want to get to because it's coaching related. And this is an interesting angle. Now that the Bills have been knocked out by the Kansas City Chiefs, Doc's desk says, why don't the Bills just hire Spags? And like, obviously it's not going to happen, but why not? Would it in the end,
from your enemy? Yeah.
It's almost like it might not even make your team better, because I think they have a good head coach in Sean McDermott, but it would make the team that keeps knocking you out worse. So is that better in the end? Just go take their guy and make him your head coach. I like that idea. Obviously, it's never going to happen, but it might be the best move for the Bills to try to, because you can't trade for Chris Jones. You can't get Reed or Mahomes out of there. The only thing you can do is try to go get the head coach and try to end that dynasty. That's sort of a way, because I think Spagnuolo is a pretty big piece of it. Bills, go hire Steve Spagnuolo. Then maybe you can get past the Kansas City Chiefs.
I kind of love it. I mean, I don't think they're going to make coaching changes. And I know we're going to talk Saints here in a little bit. I guess Brady, the offensive coordinator, doesn't want to even go back to the Bayou, which doesn't sound great for New Orleans. But anyway, so there's probably not going to be changes going on. But I love this line of thinking. I mean, it's like, go steal your worst enemy's wife. Go, the general from the Russian army that's their number one guy, steal him and bring him to your side. So the Hatfield takes the number one McCoy off the pecking order or whatever. Yeah. Steal from your enemy. Maybe brings a player or two with him.
Yeah. Which leads us to the New Orleans Saints. Maybe New Orleans could do the Bills and everybody else in the NFL solid to try to break up the Kansas City Chiefs. Could Steve Spagnuolo be that guy? Joe Brady. We'll talk about the Saints head coach search next. This episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by LinkedIn and LinkedIn Jobs. As a small business owner, your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, which means when it's time to hire, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. LinkedIn's new feature can help you write job descriptions and then quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And here's a pro tip. Add the hashtag hiring frame to your profile picture to double your reach to qualified candidates. No wonder 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn helps them find high quality hires. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So the New Orleans Saints, you mentioned Joe Brady there. I think that's someone that a lot of people are clamoring for. Obviously, he won a national championship there, coordinating the offense for the LSU Tigers. And the latest report I'm seeing is that the Saints hope to schedule a second interview with Joe Brady. But the fact that it's Tuesday now, Matt, and the Bills are out and they haven't scheduled that interview, that is a little bit curious. They really wanted Aaron Glenn to come down and interview with them a second time. He ended up getting hired by the New York Jets. Mike Kafka, offense coordinator for the Giants, conducted a second interview last week. Cliff Kingsbury, offense coordinator of the Commanders, is to interview, but he won't interview until after the season. Now their season is over, so he can do that, but to my knowledge, has not yet. Mike McCarthy is set to interview as well with the New Orleans Saints. Kellen Moore, offensive coordinator for the Eagles, conducted a second interview on Monday, I believe. And what's interesting is Kellen Moore turned down the Cowboys interview, but said yes to the Saints interview.
That's the name that was sticking out to me because I kind of got the impression Brady's not interested, and that makes all the sense in the world. He's been, and I looked at that as a negative because he's been in that building. He knows how it goes. Mickey Loomis has all the power. I mean, like, I think he's like in their will. I mean, he also runs the Pelicans or whatever too. Like, Mickey Loomis is the guy that's in charge of everything. And correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe you don't know this, but I think in his recent interview, he wasn't even sure what pick they had in the first round. You know, like he said something along those lines that, and we know their cap situation is nasty. I don't know that it's very attractive, but Kellen Moore, to me, turning down Dallas, might think I have the Saints job. And I get it. I mean, you know.
The Mickey Loomis thing is strange. He's been the team president, I think is his title.
Yeah.
Since like 2002?
Yeah, I mean, he's like in the weddings with their whole family. I mean, like he is tied in with the owners.
Yeah. He's essentially
like
part of ownership at this point.
Right.
And with
for two organizations. I mean, also the basketball team, you know.
Right. So there's a very odd situation. It might not be the greatest situation. There might be some reasons. And look, they've had a lot of success in that time as well. Mm-hmm. But was that Peyton and Breeze driven, or was Mickey Loomis like the architect of it all? I would probably lean toward the former on that one because they haven't had a lot of
Peyton just walked away from the job too.
Right, I mean, that's true. He was just like,
he's like, I'm done. I'm gonna go sit out a year. And maybe he was burned out and it takes a lot out of you. I get that, but man, the fact that this is the only open job, worst cap situation ever, not a lot of young talent to build around. And the Loomis, good or bad, rulership, basically, I can see it not being very attractive.
Yeah, and some listeners on the YouTube side of things commenting about Loomis, and they seem to think that the Saints aren't going to be able to get out from under this until Loomis is gone. The Loomis era is over. So interesting. But Kellen Moore, who knows? I like that, Matt, that angle. Maybe he is their guy.
Not the most inspired, but it's okay,
They did interview the coach, Darren Rizzi, who's a special teams guy. I don't think he's a serious candidate for the job. They wanted to interview Mike Vrabel. He took the Patriots job. And the only other coach that has had a second interview was Anthony Weaver, defense coordinator of the Dolphins last week, had a second interview. So
great things about Weaver. I think Weaver's going to be a head coach someday.
Kafka, Moore, Weaver have had the second interviews. And Joe Brady, they're trying to get a second interview with, and it looks like they might have interviews after the Super Bowl with both coordinators for the Kansas City Chiefs in Matt Nagy, who's mentioned as a candidate, and potentially Steve Spagnuolo, the defense coordinator of the Chiefs as well. So we'll see this. I wouldn't expect this to be done probably until after the Super Bowl, unless they like Kellen Moore and they're ready to roll on that.
I would imagine it's going to be a couple weeks. I mean, I would think you got to wait on more either way, and unless Brady wants it now, and doesn't sound like he's jumping on it either.
Right? Yeah. So either you wait till after the Super Bowl and you conduct a couple more interviews, or just hire more, or you hire Joe Brady before the Super Bowl. Seems like the path, unless they really like Kafka. I mean, Kafka's getting a lot of interviews, but he doesn't seem like he really is a serious candidate either with a lot of teams. So I'm not really sure about the Kafka thing. It's not like those offenses have been amazing in New York either with the Giants. Anthony Weaver is well thought of, but that feels a little too soon for him to be a head coach now. So, yeah.
And then meanwhile, I don't think we talked about this, but Dennis Allen goes to the Bears to be their defensive coordinator, which is kind of like the Eberflus conversation to me, that he was a really good defensive coordinator. I don't know. I never thought of him as head coach, but I think that's a really good hire for the Bears. Offensive-minded guy, and who's probably done battle with him a fair amount. Good.
And by the way, a lot of people have pushed back on my idea of a team hiring Spags, saying, no, he doesn't want the job. Steve Spagnuolo has said, I do want another shot at it. I want another crack. A lot of coaches are much better, have a better opportunity the second time around when they become a head coach. And he says, I'm fine with where I'm at right now, but I would like a crack, but I've got some work to do. So we'll talk about that after the season. So that's what Steve Spagnuolo's official stance is on it. And I have a feeling, those jobs don't come around. It's still just one of 32, even if it's not the greatest job in the world. If one of those coordinators from the Super Bowl wants the job, I think that's where the Saints' new head coach
must be leaning. I mean, the tea leaves say somebody from the Super Bowl is probably the answer, since nothing's happened this week. And who knows? We could hit stop the record button, and if something happens, and right after. But I don't know. I'd rather be the defense coordinator of the Chiefs than the head coach of the Saints.
I'll give you 10 million reasons a year why I'd rather have the Saints job.
Yeah, and I'm still playing right now, and I don't think the Saints will be next year or in the foreseeable future.
You get an earlier vacation. Well, wouldn't you rather have $10 million in your bank account extra and be in Cabo right now than being in the Super Bowl?
That doesn't sound terrible, but I like rings too.
That's not how coaches are wired. Yeah.
No. I'm sure Spags will have a nice vacation at some point. Just a little later than everybody else.
Obviously, the cap is a big situation for the New Orleans Saints. Yeah. They've got to figure out quarterback. There's a lot to figure out with the New Orleans Saints. Like, that's a big job. That's a job that's probably not a quick turnaround.
I'm not a big tank guy, but this case I might be, where trade Carr for a third-round pick to the Giants or something, and roll out Rattler for a year and take our chances, develop them, but you're going to lose a lot of games.
Well, hey, Louisiana legend, the Manning family, Arch Manning. What if he comes?
How about that? Yeah, now that's perfect. Yeah, I mean, that's a storybook ending there. Even like the DeMario Davises and Cameron Jordans.
Yeah.
Mathau, Honey Badger and those guys. It might be time just for lose a lot of games and get an early pick.
Arch Manning might even be that almost. I wouldn't even want to put that on him. That's almost too much pressure, right?
It'd be incredible
to go where your grandfather was a superstar in New Orleans.
Your uncles were raised there.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that would be incredible.
That would be. I mean, if there's a path for the Saints, might as well hire somebody, fix one side of the ball, tank, draft Arch Manning, and then you get a new Manning.
Let's go. Right. Yeah. I bet the Benson family would love that.
Got that. At least sell some jerseys. That's for sure.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that place would be on fire. It's a great fan base, too.
All right. We got the New Orleans Saints figured out. Get those questions in for Thursday's mailbag episode at BD Peacock, at Williamson NFL. Drop a question in the YouTube comments. Matt's going to be out tomorrow. I will be chatting with Aaron Schatz, the godfather of DVOA, breaking down the Super Bowl and so much more. So stay tuned, and we'll be back tomorrow right here, Peacock and Williamson.